Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at Yema.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Specifically their Superman line.
Okay, cool.
There's this article, let me see. It's called Yema Superman Swiss Edition, Sellita Movement Return.
Gotcha. So what's the big takeaway?
Well, they're making a pretty big shift in strategy. And you know what? I have to say, I'm really kind of surprised by how open they're being about the whole thing.
Yeah, you're right. That's not really typical in this industry.
Mm.
Usually they're very hush-hush about these kinds of internal decisions.
So basically, they're moving their entry-level Supermans
Mm-hmm.
back to Sellita movements, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they were really pushing those in-house calibers like the Yema 2000 and the 3000 too.
Yeah, it seemed like a big investment for them.
Exactly.
I bet some people are wondering if this means they're like abandoning their own movements completely.
Yeah. Like, is this the end of Yema in-house?
Right.
Well, from what they've said, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, they've specifically said that they'll still service those older calibers.
So existing owners are good. They don't need to panic.
Right, exactly. No need to panic if you've got a Yema with a 2000 or a 3000. But yeah, it definitely seems like more of a strategic shift.
Interesting.
Focusing more on those higher end watches, the manufacturer collection with the in-house movements. Makes sense, right?
Definitely. It makes you think, though. Could some people see using Sellita as a kind of like step backward,
Oh, totally.
especially after, all the hype around those in-house calibers?
Like, are they admitting defeat or something?
It's a valid point for sure, but I don't know. I think it could actually be a good thing.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, hear me out. Focusing on in-house production for their top-tier watches, that sends a message.
Okay, what kind of message?
It says those calibers, those are the real deal.
Mm.
Like, that's where they're putting their best watchmaking forward. You know what I mean?
Ah, I see. So it's more about elevating perception.
Exactly.
Okay. So where does that leave this new Superman Swiss Edition? What is the Sellita SW200-1 all about?
It's it's known for accuracy,
Oh, okay.
which is pretty important for any watch,
Yeah,
but especially for a dive watch like the Superman.
makes sense.
I mean, it's a solid, dependable movement, a real workhorse, widely used too, which
Yeah.
means easy servicing,
Mm.
easy repairs. That's a good thing for the owner.
Yeah, no kidding.
Absolutely.
So practical, reliable, and repairs won't be a nightmare.
Right, exactly.
But what about the design? I mean, Yema, they've got a really strong look,
Yeah, for sure.
especially with the Superman. Does this new edition fit in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They've kept those signature elements,
Yeah.
those iconic Superman hands.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, the bezel-lock mechanism. Even the historical coat of arms, that's still on the case back.
Cool. So it still looks like a Superman. But what about updates?
Yeah, there are definitely some modern touches, especially with the dial colors.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, you've got your, classic black and white, of course.
Hmm.
But then they've also got beige and even blue.
Ooh, blue. Interesting. That's a pretty bold choice, isn't it? For a watch that's usually, more traditional.
It is. But I think it's cool. It shows they're willing to, evolve the design a little bit.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, while still respecting the whole Superman heritage.
Yeah.
And they've kept it balanced, proportion-wise, I mean. You can choose between 39mm and 41mm cases.
Okay.
And the thickness is pretty reasonable,
Huh?
only 13.9mm.
So it's not going to be this big clunky thing on your wrist.
No.
It's a watch you could actually wear every day, not just when you're diving.
Exactly. They've really thought about that, how it'll actually feel to wear it.
And speaking of practical aspects, this whole shift to Sellita
Yeah.
makes you think about their business model as a whole.
Oh, how so?
Well, remember all those crowdfunding campaigns they were doing?
Oh, yeah. That was a little strange, right, for a brand like Yema.
It was definitely a talking point.
Like, why were they doing that? Some people thought it was because they were having trouble with, getting that in-house movement production up to speed.
I see.
Others thought it was more about, like, testing new designs, gauging consumer interest before committing to a full production run.
That makes sense.
So basically, managing risk.
Okay.
But now, they've specifically said those crowdfunding campaigns, those are done, finished.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what's the connection to this new strategy? That's the question.
Well, I think it's a good sign.
Good. How so?
Moving away from crowdfunding.
Yeah.
It suggests that Yema is in like a more secure position financially.
Interesting.
It allows them to really invest,
Yeah.
research, development, production.
Without needing to rely on all those outside backers.
All right, exactly.
So it's more than just the movements they use. It's
Yeah.
about like taking control of their own future.
Yeah, becoming more self-sufficient.
Right.
And when you're independent, you can make the best decisions for the brand.
Instead of always worrying about the short term, the money,
Makes sense. Makes sense.
thinking long term.
Yeah, it's like they're playing the long game,
Right.
building a sustainable future for Yema.
Exactly.
But let's go back to the Superman Swiss Edition for a sec.
Yeah, okay.
You mentioned the Sellita SW200 wing being accurate.
Yeah.
But what else stands out to you about it, technically speaking?
Well, one thing is how robust it is.
Robust. Okay.
It's known for being durable, reliable. This thing can take a beating
For real.
and keep on going. Important for a dive watch,
Right?
like the Superman.
Right.
I mean, it'll probably see some rougher conditions.
Than just sitting on someone's dresser.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, easy to service. That's always a plus.
Oh, yeah.
Fewer headaches down the line.
Yeah, no kidding.
You won't have to, search for some super specialized watchmaker to work on this thing.
Okay.
Any decent technician can handle a SW200-1.
That's good.
Peace of mind right there.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing that your watch can be repaired without too much hassle.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and think about design.
Okay.
What's the philosophy behind this Superman Swiss Edition? What stands out to you?
Well, I think they've done a really nice job of, blending the heritage
Mm-hmm.
with some modern touches.
Okay.
They've kept the core stuff
Yeah.
that makes a Superman, recognizable.
Yeah.
The bezel lock, the hands, that overall silhouette.
Uh-huh.
But they've also made some subtle updates,
Mhm.
to make it feel contemporary.
Like those new dial colors.
Yeah, like the blue, especially.
That's a pretty big change, isn't it?
It is. It's bold,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it works.
Okay.
It adds a little something extra, some personality, shows that they're not afraid to experiment, push the boundaries a little.
That's what keeps it interesting, right? Seeing a brand like Yema, they've got all this history, but they're still evolving, staying relevant.
Yeah.
But they're not, throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right, exactly.
It's a balance.
Yeah, they're not alienating the core fan.
Right, they're not.
It's delicate, but they're doing it.
Yeah, I think they've struck a good balance between, honoring the past and embracing the future.
I think so too.
And I think that's clear, right?
Yeah.
In every part of the Superman Swiss Edition, from the movement to the design tweaks,
It really
it's
is.
a smart approach, appealing to a wider audience, but without, losing who they are.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're still Yema, but we're not afraid to change things up.
And that's reflected in the crowdfunding thing too.
Oh, yeah.
Moving away from that,
Yeah.
it's a sign of growth, I think.
Maturity as a brand.
Exactly.
Right.
Confidence,
Right. Confidence in their own ability.
Yeah, to fund those projects, to make their own decisions.
Precisely.
But before we dive deeper into that whole crowdfunding thing, I want to take a step back
Okay.
and look at the big picture, Yema's making this strategic shift.
What's that tell us about the watch industry as a whole? What's going on out there?
That's a great question. I think it speaks to a trend,
Yeah.
towards more transparency.
Transparency?
Yeah, and authenticity.
Okay.
People are becoming more, how do I say this? More discerning, more savvy.
They're doing their research.
Yeah. They care about how these watches are made.
They want to know where their money's going.
Exactly. They want brands that are, genuine.
Real.
Real, yeah.
Mhm.
Brands with a story. Brands that are open about, how they do things.
So it's not just about the watch itself anymore.
Right,
It's
exactly.
about the values, the vision behind it.
It is, and I think Yema gets that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're being transparent about moving to Sellita.
Mm-hmm.
They're explaining why they're focusing on in-house for those higher-end models
Mm-hmm.
and ditching crowdfunding.
Right.
It all shows that they're confident in where they're headed.
Confident.
Yeah, and they want their customers to come along for the ride.
That's like they're inviting us in, right?
Yeah.
To be a part of the story.
Instead of just being passive consumers.
Yeah.
And that builds loyalty. It builds trust.
It's a community.
Yeah, community.
Which brings us back to crowdfunding. So why were they relying on it so much in the first place? It seemed, kind of strange for a brand with their history.
Yeah, it's definitely a head scratcher.
What was the reason?
Well, maybe it was a way to test the waters, see if there was actually demand before going into full production.
Like market research almost.
Yeah, exactly. Or it could have been about building hype, you know?
Generating buzz.
Yeah, tapping into that enthusiasm that watch fans have.
Creating a sense of, like, exclusivity almost.
Yeah, right. Like you're part of something special.
Yeah, being in the know.
And for a brand like Yema,
Mm-hmm.
with, you know, a loyal following like theirs, that's a smart marketing tactic.
For sure.
But now they're moving on from that.
So what does that mean, do you think?
I think it means they're more self-assured now. They've proven they can make great watches.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a solid customer base, and they've got the money to back their own projects.
They don't need validation from crowdfunding anymore.
Nope, they don't need to raise capital that way.
It's a sign of evolution, right?
Definitely.
It's confidence.
Confidence, yeah.
Yeah.
And it gives them more control, too.
Control over what?
Over everything. Production, distribution,
Oh,
crowdfunding. You're kind of at the mercy of the platform, the backers.
whole other thing to manage.
Yeah, you have deadlines, promises to keep it. It can be a lot, you know?
For sure.
Especially for a company that cares about quality, about craftsmanship.
Right.
And by moving away from crowdfunding,
Yeah.
they're basically saying, these things are important to us. Quality, craftsmanship, and controlling our own destiny.
It's a bold move.
It is.
But it feels calculated, you know, like they know what they're doing.
It does.
It's like they're saying, we're ready for the next chapter. We're going to stand on our own 2 feet.
And I, for one, am excited to see what they do.
Me too.
They're a brand with a great story, and I think they've only just begun.
Well said. It really makes you think, what if this is just the beginning?
The beginning of what?
Like, what if other brands follow Yema's lead?
You mean with this whole, like, strategic shift thing?
Yeah. Finding that balance between, you know, heritage, appealing to a wider audience, and innovation.
It's definitely a model for other brands to consider, for sure.
We see a lot of companies going all in on in-house movements these days, even for their, like, entry-level watches.
Right. But Yema's kind of saying, hold on, maybe there's another way.
A smarter way, even.
Yeah. Maybe you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time.
Using those reliable, widely respected movements like the Sellita.
Exactly. It's like using the right tool for the job.
Right. What works for a super complicated flagship watch, it might not be the best choice for a more everyday kind of piece.
Totally. And the whole crowdfunding thing, it was a little weird at first.
It really was.
But maybe it was like a stepping stone.
To get them to this point, yeah.
Where they're strong enough financially to fund their own projects.
Without needing to rely on those outside backers.
Exactly.
But that move away from crowdfunding, it sends a powerful message.
For sure. Stability, confidence, they're in control.
Calling the shots. And people are noticing.
Oh, yeah.
The Superman Swiss Edition, people are excited about it.
It's a cool watch.
And I think it's because it, like, hits all the right notes.
How so?
It's classic, but still contemporary,
Right.
reliable, but stylish. It's accessible, but they haven't skimped on quality.
You're right. It's like the essence of what Yema is all about. Respecting their history, but still pushing forward, always innovating.
What do you think they'll do next?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe more in-house movements for those top-tier watches?
Yeah, maybe. Or some totally new designs.
Yeah.
Complications.
Who knows? But I think this newfound independence, it gives them the freedom to take risks.
To really experiment.
Exactly.
Well, one thing's for sure, we'll be watching.
Absolutely. Yema's a brand to keep your eye on. They're doing some really interesting things.
Well, I think it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. We've covered a lot. Yema's strategic shift, their renewed focus on in-house movements, moving away from crowdfunding, and of course, the Superman Swiss Edition itself, a watch that really captures everything Yema stands for.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. We learned a lot about what makes Yema, well, Yema, that blend of tradition and innovation. It's a powerful combination.
And for our listeners, I'll leave you with this. Sometimes taking a step back can be the best way to move forward. Yema is a great example of that. Reassess your strengths, focus on what you do best, and build a solid foundation for the future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.